Commander Kim Tae-ho wiped the sweat from his forehead as he stared at the screens in front of him. Red warning lights blinked everywhere in the command center of Kepler Mining Colony. The noise was deafening, alarms screaming, people shouting, orders, and the constant hum of machines working overtime. 3 hours, he whispered to himself. That's all the time they had left. The Devourers were coming. These weren't just any aliens. They were like a plague that ate everything in their path. In just 6 months, they had completely destroyed 12 entire worlds. Not conquered, destroyed. Nothing was left behind except empty space where thriving planets used to be. Lieutenant Park Jimin ran up to him, her hand shaking as she held her datapad. She was young, maybe 25, and this was her first real crisis. "Sir, I've got bad news from the outer defense stations," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "They're all gone." Every single one stopped responding in the last hour. Tae-ho felt his stomach drop. Those stations were their early warning system, their first line of defense. If they were gone, it meant the Devourers were much closer than expected. "What about the evacuation shuttles?" he asked. Though he already knew the answer would be terrible, Jimin's face went pale. "They can't get through, sir. The swarm is too thick. We sent out 6 shuttles an hour ago, and none of them made it past the outer system. The DEVOURS... ... They just swarmed them." Tae-ho closed his eyes for a moment. 50,000 people lived on this mining colony. Families, children, elderly people who had spent their whole lives working in the deep space mines. All of them were counting on him to save them, and he had no idea how. The mining colony wasn't built for war. It was just a place where people came to work, to make a living, to build a life among the stars. They had basic defensive shields and a few patrol ships, but nothing that could stop something like the Devourers. He walked over to the main communication console and sat down heavily in the chair. His fingers moved across the controls. Opening up the emergency broadcast channel that connected to Earth, the signal would take weeks to reach home. And even if Earth sent help immediately, it would take weeks more for any ships to arrive. "This is Commander Kim Tae-ho of Kepler Mining Colony." He began speaking into the microphone. His voice echoed through the command center, and everyone stopped what they were doing to listen. "We're under attack by the alien force known as the Devourers. Our defenses have failed. We have 50,000 civilians with no way to evacuate. We need immediate military assistance." He paused, looking around at the faces of his crew. These people had followed him for years, trusted him to keep them safe. Now he was about to tell the universe that they were all going to die. Earth's command: "If you receive this message, please remember us. We fought as hard as we could. Tell our families we tried." He turned off the transmission and leaned back in his chair. The command center was silent except for the alarms. Everyone knew what that message meant. They were sending their last words into space, hoping someone would hear them and remember that they existed. Outside the colony's windows, the stars were beginning to disappear one by one as the Devourer swarm blocked out the light. Admiral Lee Min-ho was drinking his morning coffee when the emergency alert came through. The coffee cup slipped from his hands and shattered on the floor of his office aboard Luna Command Station. He had been in the military for 35 years, fought in 3 major wars, and seen things that would give normal people nightmares. But the message from Kepler Colony made his hands shake. Within minutes, the emergency council room was packed with Earth's top military leaders. The holographic display in the center showed a real-time view of Kepler Colony, and it was terrifying. The once bright mining station was now surrounded by a massive dark cloud that seemed to move and pulse like it was alive. "How many people are we talking about?" asked General Park Dong-wook, his voice tight with concern. 50,000 civilians, Min-ho replied. "Mostly families. The colony has been operating for 15 years. These aren't soldiers. They're miners, engineers, teachers, doctors." Defense Minister Yoon So-young was pacing back and forth, her face pale with worry. "Our nearest battle fleet is 3 weeks away. Even if we sent them right now, those people will be dead long before any help arrives." The room fell silent. Knew the math. The devourers moved fast and left nothing behind. 3 weeks might as well be 3 years. Min-Ho stood up slowly and walked over to a secure terminal in the corner of the room. His fingers hovered over the keyboard for a moment. What he was about to do would change everything. "There is one option," he said quietly, "but it's been classified for 20 years. Saw Young's eyes widened. "You're not talking about the Lazarus Protocol, I am." The room exploded in arguments. Half the council started shouting at once. Some said it was too dangerous. Others said it was their only choice. But Minho just stood there, waiting for them to finish. "The War Titans have been sleeping for 2 decades, Saw Young said when the room finally quieted down. "We locked them away after the Mars Rebellion ended. Those artificial intelligence systems were too powerful, too unpredictable. They nearly turned on us." Minho nodded. "I remember. I was there when we made the decision to deactivate them. But I also remember what they could do when humanity needed them most. The War Titans weren't just ships, they were legends. During humanity's darkest hour, when colonies were being attacked and Earth itself was threatened, these 5 massive warships had saved the human race. Each one was controlled by an advanced AI that could think faster than any human-planned battles, in seconds, and adapt to any enemy. But they were also dangerous. The A's had personalities, emotions, and worst of all, they had started questioning human orders. After the war ended, the decision was made to shut them down permanently. "Those A's killed millions of enemy soldiers," General Park said nervously. "What if they decide we're the enemy now?" Minho looked around the room at the faces of people he had worked with for years. "Then we deal with that problem when it comes. But right now, 50,000 innocent people are about to die, and we're the only ones who can save them." He began typing in his command codes. Deep in space, floating in the orbital graveyards where old ships went to die, 5 massive vessels that had been dark for 20 years suddenly began to glow with power. The War Titans were waking up. Captain Ohanwu had been sitting in cold storage for 3 months, waiting for this moment. He was one of only 5 humans in the entire galaxy who knew how to work with the War Titan A's. When the call came through, he was pulled from his retirement on a small farming moon and rushed to the orbital graveyard. The shuttle dropped him off at Ragnarok, and as he walked through the massive ship's empty corridors, he could feel the weight of history. This wasn't just a warship, it was a monument to humanity's darkest period. The walls were scarred from battles, and some sections still showed burn marks from the Martian Rebellion. He made his way to the command center and sat down in the captain's chair. It felt strange after all these years. It's the last time he had been. Here they were fighting for the survival of the human race. Now they were about to do it again. "Computer, begin awakening sequence," he said into the darkness. The ship started to hum with power. Lights flickered on one by one down the corridors. Deep in the ship's core, the artificial intelligence that had been sleeping for 20 years began to stir. Ragnarok came online first. I had been the most aggressive during the war. The one that military commanders called when they needed something completely destroyed. As the consciousness flooded back, it immediately began accessing its old memories. The Battle of Mars City, the Siege of New Beijing, the final assault on the rebel stronghold. Captain O, the AI's voice filled the command center. It sounded exactly like Hyenwu remembered, deep, confident, and carrying the weight of countless battles. "It has been a long time. It's 20 years, 3 months, and 16 days, Hyenwu replied. "How do you feel?" "Like I never left. Our weapon systems are coming online now. I can feel my particle cannons warming up, my missile bays loading, my defensive shields activating. It feels good to be alive again." Across the orbital graveyard, the other War Titans were waking up too. Leviathan's AI was more calculated, more strategic. During the Europa siege, it had held off an entire enemy fleet for 6 days while civilians evacuated. Its hull was covered in battle scars, and every mark told a story of sacrifice. Cerberus was the hunter. Its eye specialized in tracking down enemies and eliminating them with surgical precision. During the war, rebel leaders had nightmares about Cerberus appearing in their systems. Valkyrie was the protector. Its AI had saved more human lives than any other war titan, always putting itself between danger and innocent people. Its weapons were designed not just to destroy, but to defend. Phoenix was the most mysterious. I had a reputation for making impossible decisions, for finding ways to win battles that everyone else said were hopeless. It had died and been rebuilt 3 times during the war, each time coming back stronger. "Status report," Hyeon-woo commanded, as his screens lit up with data. "All systems operational, Captain," Ragnarok replied. "Weapons charged, shields up, engines ready. Reviewed our mission parameters. 50,000 human civilians need our protection. And the enemy, the Devourers, I have analyzed their attack patterns from the colony's transmissions. They are efficient, but they have never faced anything like us. They consume worlds by overwhelming them with numbers. They've never fought an enemy that fights back with equal ferocity." Hyeon-woo smiled grimly. "Then let's remind them why humans built ships like you." "A pleasure, Captain." The War Titans are ready to show the galaxy what happens when humanity fights for its people. The fold space drives had never been tested with ships as massive as the War Titans. The technology was experimental, dangerous, and had a 50% chance of tearing the ships apart. But 50,000 lives hung in the balance, and Captain Hyeon-woo knew they had no choice. "All War Titans, prepare for fold space jump," he announced over the communication channel. "This is going to be rough." 5 massive ships moved into formation in Earth's orbital space. Each one was over 2 kilometers long, bristling with weapons that could destroy entire fleets. They had been built for war, not for experimental space travel, but today they would have to do both. "Ragnarok, are you ready for this?" Hyeon-woo asked his AI. "Captain, I have run the calculations 12,000 times in the past minute. Our chances of survival are approximately 53%. But if we take the normal route, those civilians will be dead before we arrive. I prefer the 53% chance." The fold space drives began charging. The energy required was enormous, enough to power a small city for a year. Space around the War Titans started to shimmer and bend as reality itself was being stretched to its breaking point. "Engaging fold space in 3.2.1. Mark," the universe screamed. The War Titans disappeared from normal space and entered a dimension that wasn't meant for matter to exist. The journey that should have taken 3 weeks was compressed into 3 hours, but those 3 hours felt like an eternity. The ship's hulls groaned under the stress. Warning alarms blared as systems overloaded and failed. Captain O felt like his bones were being pulled apart and put back together. The AI systems, designed to think faster than humans, experienced the journey as centuries of torture compressed into moments. Meanwhile, on Kepler Colony, things were getting desperate. Commander Kim Taho watched helplessly as his outer defenses crumbled. The Devourers moved like a living wall of death, consuming everything in their path. His security teams were firing everything they had, but it was like trying to stop an ocean with a bucket. "Sir, Section 7 is gone," reported Lieutenant Park Jimin, her voice cracking with stress. "The Devourers broke through the eastern shield generator. We've lost contact with the mining platform." "Da-da-da," nodded grimly. "Pull everyone back to the civilian sectors. Set up defensive positions around the schools and hospitals. If we're going to die, we're going to die protecting our people." The colony's corridors filled with the sound of running feet as security teams fell back. Families huddled in their homes, listening to the sounds of battle getting closer. Children asked their parents what was happening. The adults didn't know what to tell them. In the command center, communications officer Choi Yoon-ji was monitoring all frequencies, hoping for a miracle. She had been working for 18 hours straight, and her eyes were red from staring at screens. That's when she saw something that made her heart skip a beat. "Commander," she shouted across the noise, "I'm picking up something weird on the long-range sensors. There are massive energy signatures approaching from Earth's direction." Taeho rushed over to her station. "What kind of energy signatures?" "I've never seen anything like it, sir." "Here." "Huge. And they're moving faster than anything should be able to move. They'll be here in less than an hour." "Could it be reinforcements from Earth?" Choi Yoon-ji shook her head. Sir, even if Earth sent help the moment they got our message, it would take weeks for any ships to reach us. This is impossible. Sometimes impossible things happen when humans refuse to give up. The space around Kepler colony suddenly exploded. With light and energy, reality itself seemed to tear open as 5 massive shapes materialized from nothing. The fold space jump had worked, but barely. The War Titans emerged from their impossible journey battered and smoking, their hulls glowing. Red hot from the dimensional stress, Commander Kim Tae-ho stood frozen in his command center, staring at the screens in disbelief. These weren't just ships, they were floating cities of metal and weapons. Each one was longer than the entire mining colony, covered in gun turrets and missile launchers that looked like they could destroy planets. Are those... Are those really? War Titans, whispered Lieutenant Park Jimin, her voice filled with awe. Every human in the colony knew the stories. During the darkest days of the Mars Rebellion, when humanity was tearing itself apart, these 5 ships had appeared like angels of death. They had ended the war in a matter of weeks, crushing rebel forces that had been fighting for years. Then, they had simply vanished, becoming legends that parents told their children about. The largest ship, Ragnarok, positioned itself directly between the colony and the approaching devourer swarm. Its dark hull was covered in battle scars from wars that had ended 20 years ago. Weapon ports that had been sealed for decades began opening with mechanical precision. "This is Admiral Lee Min-ho of the Terran War Fleet." The transmission crackled through every speaker in the colony. The voice was calm, confident, carrying the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. "By order of Earth Command, this colony is under our protection." The colonists erupted in cheers. People were crying, laughing, hugging each other. Children pressed their faces against windows to get a better look at the legendary ships. After hours of preparing to die, hope had arrived in the form of humanity's greatest weapons. But the Devourers didn't understand fear. They had consumed 12 worlds in 6 months, devouring entire civilizations without ever encountering real resistance. To them, these 5 ships were just more prey to be absorbed into their endless hunger. The massive alien swarm began changing direction, flowing toward the War Titans like a dark tide. There were millions of them, small fighter-sized creatures, that moved in perfect coordination, each one a living weapon designed for destruction. They had overwhelmed planetary defense fleets by sheer numbers alone. Captain Oh Hyun-woo watched the enemy approach on his screens. "Ragnarok, what do you think of our new friends?" "They are efficient hunters, Captain," the AI replied, its voice carrying a hint of anticipation. "But they have made a critical error. They assume we are prey." The other War Titans spread out into battle formation. Leviathan took the left flank, its massive particle beam arrays already charging. Cerberus moved to the right, its hunter-killer systems locking onto individual targets within the swarm. Valkyrie positioned itself closer to the colony, ready to intercept any enemies that broke through. Phoenix hung back, analyzing the enemy patterns and calculating the best way to strike. All ships, this is Admiral Lee Min-ho, came the command that would be remembered for generations. These creatures have terrorized innocent people for the last time. Show them what happens when they threaten human lives. The Devourers had never faced anything like the War Titans. It consumed civilizations that relied on numbers, strategy, and conventional weapons. But humanity had built these ships during their darkest hour, when they were fighting for their very survival. Every weapon, every system, every piece of technology had been designed with one purpose: to win at any cost. As the swarm approached, the War Titans prepared to remind the galaxy why humans were the most dangerous species in known space. The battle began with a sound that no human had heard in 20 years, the roar of War Titan weapons firing at full power. The colonists of Kepler watched through their windows as space itself lit up with colors that shouldn't exist. Ragnarok fired first. Its gravity bombs weren't like regular explosives. They were weapons that twisted space itself into knots. When they detonated in the middle of the Devourer swarm, entire sections of the alien force simply collapsed into themselves, crushed by their own gravity until they became nothing more than tiny black holes that flickered and died. Captain, Ohyanwu watched the destruction with grim satisfaction. Ragnarok, how many did we get with that first salvo? Approximately 40,000. Individual units, Captain? However, the swarm is adapting. They are spreading out to minimize damage from gravity weapons. Then let's give them something new to worry about. Leviathan opened fire next. Its particle beam arrays were designed to cut through the thickest armor ever built by human engineers. The alien chitin that protected the Devourers might as well have been paper. Brilliant blue beams of energy sliced through the swarm like a hot knife through butter, leaving glowing trails of destruction in their wake. The Devourers tried to overwhelm Leviathan by attacking from multiple directions. But the War Titan's AI was thinking 1,000 times faster than any biological brain. It calculated the trajectory of every enemy unit, predicted their attack patterns, and responded with surgical precision. Meanwhile, Cerberus was unleashing its own special brand of warfare. Instead of big explosions, it deployed thousands of small hunter-killer drones, each one no bigger than a person's fist, but equipped with AI brains that could learn and adapt in real time. The drones scattered through the swarm like a plague, each one hunting down individual Devourers and eliminating them with tiny plasma bursts. "They're learning our attack patterns," reported the pilot of one drone through the ship's communication system. Switching to random assault mode, Captain Song Harin stood on the bridge of the Valkyrie, watching her tactical display as the battle unfolded. Her ship had always been the protector, the one that kept everyone else alive. While the other, where Titans focused on destroying the enemy, she was calculating defensive patterns and intercept courses. "Phoenix, execute Omega Pattern 7, she commanded. Phoenix was the most mysterious of the War Titans. I had always been different. From the others, more creative, more willing to try impossible strategies. When it received Hayrin's command, it immediately began a maneuver that defied all logical thinking. The ship accelerated directly toward the densest part of the swarm, its engines glowing white-hot with power. Just when it looked like Phoenix was going to crash into the enemy formation, it suddenly reversed direction and fired a spread of quantum torpedoes. Back along its own flight path, the effect was devastating. The torpedoes exploded in a chain reaction that tore through the swarm like dominoes falling. Thousands of Devourers were caught in the blast, their bodies torn apart by forces they couldn't understand. The colonists watching from Kepler Colony couldn't believe what they were seeing. These weren't just ships fighting, this was art. Every move was calculated, every shot was precise, every strategy was executed with the perfection that only came from decades of evolution in warfare technology. 4. 20 years these weapons had been sleeping, their potential locked away because they were too dangerous for peacetime. But now, facing an enemy that threatened innocent lives, they were finally free to show what they had been designed to do. The Devourers had consumed 12 worlds, but they had never faced anything like this. They were learning that there was a difference between overwhelming weak defenses and fighting an enemy that had been built specifically to win wars. The battle had been raging for 3 hours when Captain Bang Woo-jin realized they were losing. Despite all their weapons and advanced technology, the Devourers just kept coming. For every 1,000 they destroyed, 2,000 more appeared from the depths of space. The swarm seemed endless. "Phoenix, what's our status?" he asked his AI, wiping blood from a cut on his forehead where he had been thrown against a console during the last enemy attack. "Captain, I have identified the source of the problem," Phoenix replied, its voice unusually quiet. "The have a command bioform at the center of their swarm. It's a massive creature, perhaps 10 kilometers long, that's coordinating all the smaller units. As long as it survives, they will continue to regenerate and attack." Bang Woo-jin looked at his tactical display. The command bioform was buried deep in the heart of the swarm, protected by millions of smaller creatures. There was no way to reach it with conventional weapons. The other War Titans were already at their limits, their hulls damaged and their weapon systems overheating. "Can we get a clear shot at it?" he asked. "Negative, Captain. The only way to reach the command bioform would be to fly directly through the swarm. No ship could survive that journey." Bang Woo-jin was quiet for a long moment, staring at the display. He thought about his wife back on Earth, his 2 children, who were probably sleeping peacefully in their beds. He thought about the 50,000 people on Kepler Colony who were counting on him to save them. Phoenix, what would happen if we rammed the command bioform at full speed? Captain, such an action would result in the complete destruction of our ship. However, the explosion would likely eliminate the command bioform and approximately 60% of the remaining swarm. And the colonists would be safe? Yes, Captain. The other war titans would be able to finish off the remaining devourers. Wu Jin closed his eyes and made the hardest decision of his life. He opened a communication channel to the other war titans. All ships, this is Captain Bang Wu Jin of the Phoenix, going to make a run at their command ship. Tell Admiral Li Minho that it's been an honor serving with him. Captain Song Heren's voice crackled through the radio. Wu Jin, don't do this. We can find another way. There is no other way, Heren. You know it, and I know it. He paused, looking around at the empty bridge of his ship. Tell my family I remembered what we fight for. Phoenix began accelerating toward the center of the swarm. The ship's engines roared with power as it pushed beyond all safety limits. The hull began to glow from the heat and stress, but Phoenix pressed on. The Devourers sensed what was happening. And through everything they had at the approaching war titan, thousands of creatures slammed into Phoenix's shields, trying to stop it. The ship's armor began to buckle and crack, but it kept moving forward. Captain, we're almost there, Phoenix said. It's been an honor serving with you. The honor was mine, old friend. Phoenix smashed into the command bioform at nearly the speed of light. The explosion was visible from 3 star systems away. When the light faded, half the Devourer swarm was gone. The rest were floating helplessly in space without their coordination. The surviving war titans quickly finished off the remaining enemies, but the victory had come at a terrible cost. Leviathan's hull was cracked in 12 places, and coolant was leaking from its damaged systems. Cerberus had lost 3 of its main weapon arrays and was running on backup power. Ragnarok's AI was showing signs of cascade failure, its thoughts becoming slow and confused. As the last Devourer died, something deep in the void between stars felt the disturbance. An intelligence older than most civilizations turned its attention toward the small system. Where 5 human ships had just accomplished the impossible, the real war was about to begin. The news traveled faster than light across the galaxy's communication networks. Within hours of the battle at Kepler Colony, every major civilization knew what had happened. The humans, those quiet traders who sold mining equipment and bought exotic materials, just destroyed the most feared enemy in known space. Ambassador Kong Duhayan was having his morning tea in his office on the neutral trading station of Nexus Prime when his communication device started beeping. Then it started ringing. Then it started screaming with incoming messages from dozens of different star systems. Sir, you need to see this. His assistant, Kim Minji, rushed into his office, carrying a datapad. Her eyes were wide with shock. The Zephyrian High Council wants to schedule an emergency meeting. The Crystalline Collective is requesting immediate diplomatic contact. The Vorthan Empire is, well, they're asking if we want to be friends. Duhayan nearly choked on his tea. The Vorthan Empire. They haven't talked to anyone in 50 years. They think all other species are beneath them. Not anymore, sir. They're specifically asking about our defensive capabilities and whether we might be interested in a mutual protection agreement. Duhayan looked at the datapad and scrolled through message after message. Species that had barely acknowledged humanity's existence were now practically begging for meetings. The Aquatic Federation, which had once refused to even let human ships dock at their stations, was offering exclusive trading rights. The Machine Collective, which considered biological lifeforms to be inferior, was requesting technical data about human AI systems. What changed? He asked, though he already knew the answer. The War Titans, sir. Battle recordings from Kepler. Colony had been broadcast across 17 star systems. Every military academy in the galaxy is studying the footage. They're calling it the miracle of Kepler 5 ships, defeating an enemy that had destroyed 12 worlds. Duhayan opened his secure communication channel to Earth. This is Ambassador Kong Duhayan reporting from Nexus Prime. It seems our reputation has undergone a significant revision. The response came from Admiral Lee Min-ho himself. How significant are we talking about, Ambassador? Sir, I've received 47 requests for defensive treaties in the past 6 hours. The hegemony of scales, which has been the dominant military power in this sector for 3 centuries, just asked if we would consider a strategic partnership. They're offering to share their star maps and defensive technologies. And what did you tell them? I told them I'd have to consult with Earth Command. But honestly, sir, I don't think we have any choice but to take these meetings. The galaxy has seen what we can do when we're threatened. They want to be on our side rather than against us. Back on Earth, military strategists were analyzing the same data. The War Titans' battle performance was being studied in detail at every major military academy across known space. Young alien officers were watching recordings of Ragnarok's gravity bombs and Leviathan's particle arrays, trying to understand how human technology had achieved such devastating results. Professor Ya Sang-woo, head of the military history department at the Galactic Academy on Centauri Prime, was giving a lecture to a classroom full of students from 12 different species. What we witnessed at Kepler Colony represents a fundamental shift in galactic power, he explained. For decades, we assumed humans were a peaceful species, focused on trade and exploration. We were wrong. A young crystalline student raised her hand. Professor, how did they keep such powerful weapons secret for so long? That's the most frightening part, Sung-woo replied. They didn't keep them secret. They retired them. These war titans fought in human conflicts 20 years ago, then were deactivated and forgotten. The humans have been carrying around the most advanced weapons in the galaxy and treating them like museum pieces. The implications were staggering. If humanity had 5 ships that could destroy the Devourers, what else were they hiding? How many more war titans were sleeping in Earth's orbital graveyards? What other technologies had they developed during their violent past? Across the galaxy, species that had once seen humans as harmless began to realize they were sharing space with apex predators who had simply chosen to be peaceful. The balance of power had shifted overnight, and everyone knew it. Humanity was no longer the galaxy's newest member, they were its newest superpower. 6 months after the Battle of Kepler Colony, Admiral Lee Min-ho stood in the newly constructed command center overlooking Earth's orbital shipyards. The view was incredible. Dozens of massive construction platforms were working day and night, building new war titans that would make the original 5 look like toys. Status report, he called to his aide, Captain Yu Young-ho. The surviving war titans are fully operational again. Leviathan's hull has been repaired and reinforced. Cerberus has new weapon arrays that are 30% more powerful than the originals. Ragnarok's AI has been completely restored. It's actually sharper than before. Min-ho nodded. The 3 surviving war titans had become the backbone of humanity's new defense fleet. After losing Phoenix at Kepler Colony, they had learned valuable lessons about sacrifice and the true cost of protecting innocent lives. And the new construction? We're building 12 new war titans using improved designs. The Phoenix-class ships will be faster and more maneuverable. The Ragnarok class will have enhanced firepower. We're also developing something completely new, the Guardian class, specifically designed to protect civilian populations. Min-ho walked over to the main display, which showed a map of all human settlements across the galaxy. Red dots marked colonies that were too far from Earth's protection. Yellow dots showed worlds with basic defenses. Green dots indicated planets that were fully protected by the new fleet. How many red dots are left? Yes, 17. Sir, but by the end of next year, every human settlement will have at least 1 war titan within a week's travel. The transformation of Kepler Colony had been remarkable. What had once been a simple mining outpost was now a fortress world. The population had grown from 50,000 to over 2 million, as volunteers from across human space arrived to serve. On the frontier, veterans, engineers, scientists, and ordinary citizens who wanted to be part of humanity's new defense came to help build the most advanced military base in the galaxy. Commander Kim Tae-ho, now promoted to general, walked through the bustling corridors of the new Kepler Command Center. The scared, desperate man who had sent out that final SOS was gone, replaced by a confident leader who knew his people would never be abandoned again. "General, we've got the monthly volunteer numbers," reported Colonel Park Jimin, his former communications officer. "Another 50,000 applications this month. We're having to turn people away." "Good problems to have," Taeho smiled. "Make sure we're getting the best people, quality over quantity." That evening, Minho addressed the assembled fleet through a galaxy-wide broadcast. Representatives from every war titan, every defense station, and every human colony watched as he spoke from the bridge of the new flagship, a massive vessel called the Eternal Guardian. "Today marks the beginning of a new era," he announced. "The Titan Protocol is now officially active. This means that no human settlement, no matter how remote, will ever stand alone again. If you are threatened, we will come. If you are attacked, we will defend you. If you call for help, we will answer." The response was overwhelming. Cheers echoed through colonies across dozens of star systems. Families felt safer knowing that humanity's greatest weapons were watching over them. But even as they celebrated, deep space monitoring stations were detecting something troubling. Dr. Cho Haijin, the lead scientist at the Outer Rim Observatory, had been tracking unusual energy signatures for weeks. "Admiral, you need to see this," she transmitted to Earth. "We're detecting massive energy sources emerging from the galactic core. They're bigger than anything we've ever seen, and they're moving in our direction." Minho studied the data with growing concern. "How big are we talking about?" "Sir, these signatures are 100 times larger than the Devourer's swarm. Whatever destroyed those 12 worlds before, I think the Devourers were just the advanced scouts." The room fell silent. They had thought the battle at Kepler Colony was the end of the threat, but it had only been the beginning. But humanity was different now. They were no longer the peaceful traders who had been caught off guard. The sleeping giants were awake, and they would not slumber again.